Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Today we have a very exciting show for you. We are going to join what seems to be a Senate debate live as they discuss the government shutdown and the effects that it's having on SNAP's food benefit recipients. So let's go ahead and jump right into that.
President is in town. What's he focused on? Instead of being focused on fixing healthcare, Donald Trump sending $40 billion to Argentina, spending $300 million on his ballroom, and giving Kristi Noem $170 million for two big private luxury jets. Meanwhile, millions of hungry kids and working families are about to lose SNAP benefits to buy food because Donald Trump has ordered the Department of Agriculture to rip up its own contingency plan. Isn't that a disgrace? Using hungry kids, hungry parents, hungry veterans as hostages. Cruel. Let's be clear about the facts. There is somewhere around $5 billion in emergency funds that could be used right now to ensure parents and kids don't go hungry when SNAP runs out this Saturday. The USDA said weeks ago that contingency funds were, quote, available to fund participant benefits. That's the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Trump's own cabinet position. But now they've reversed course and literally wiped their plan from their own website because Donald Trump has ordered them not to use this funding. Donald Trump should reverse course immediately and allow these emergency funds to go through to spare working families from hunger and needless suffering. What the administration is doing, ordering the U.S. Department of Agriculture not to use emergency funds to keep SNAP afloat, is an act of cruelty. Cruelty. The same administration that gifted Argentina $40 billion bailout and cut taxes for billionaires by $1 trillion is now telling hungry kids, you're on your own. And what about Republicans in Congress? Today, Leader Thune will force yet another vote on a Republican CR that has zero bipartisan input. It's a partisan bill and does nothing, most importantly, does nothing to solve the ACA crisis. Just now here on the floor, the Republican leader seemed perplexed about what precisely it is that Democrats are pushing for. He knows damn well what Democrats want. It's the very same thing that a vast majority of Americans want, including nearly 60% of MAGA voters. We want lower health care costs now. We want to solve the ACA premium crisis now. Open enrollment is just days away. We want lower costs, better health care, and to reopen the government. Let me repeat again what Democrats want so the leader can hear it loud and clear. The Republican leader can hear it. We want lower health care costs, fix the ACA premium crisis, and reopen the government. We Democrats have been calling on Republican leaders to sit down with us and negotiate and address this crisis since the summer. But even now, Leader Thune insists we should fix ACA premiums later, not right away. This is not good enough for the American people, because Americans know when it comes to health care, when Republicans say later, they mean never. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has become a ghost town. It's been 39 days since members of Congress have shown up for work. We all know what's going on here. Speaker Johnson's simply afraid to bring the House back because the minute he does...
Love podcasting but hate editing? The next 30 seconds will change your life.
The reason Riverside is the place you want is it is a one-stop shop for people who do not know how to edit. So you can go in, you can create the content, whether it's by yourself or whether you did the interview. And now you can edit using the transcript, which is incredible because you don't need to know anything about editing in a standard linear editor. And then you can use all of the AI tools that are being released now, like Magic Clips, where you literally do nothing. So you have your interview and you go, boop, and then it's going to spit out clips based on the AI finding portions of the conversation that it considers to be most valuable. But the point is, creating content has never been easier. And with a tool like Riverside, not only can you capture it, you don't even need to know anything about editing. Whether you're using AI or whether you're using our super simple editing tools, you can do it.
It's no surprise that Americans primarily hold Republicans responsible for this disastrous shutdown. So I'll say it once again. Republicans need to get serious about ending this shutdown and ending the ACA crisis that has now become a reality for millions of people. They need to get serious. If Donald Trump continues to ignore the ticking time bomb that is ACA premiums, the American people will hold him responsible when disaster strikes. I yield the floor.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsterbrooks.
Order number 168, H.R. 5371.
The clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Mr. President, this is a quote. The path forward for Congress is clear. Reopen the government immediately under a clean, continuing resolution that allows continued debate on larger issues, end quote. Mr. President, that is from the President of the American Federation of Government Employees, a labor union, I would add, most often aligned with Democrats. But this is what AFGE's president says, and I quote, "It's time to pass a clean, continuing resolution and end this shutdown today," end quote. Mr. President, I couldn't have said it better myself. And actually, I've been saying that for about a month now. But far-left activists wanted a showdown with President Trump. And so Democrats shut down the government and have forced hardworking Americans to live in uncertainty for 4 weeks. 4 weeks and counting. And even as nutrition programs are running out of money and federal workers are lining up at food banks, Democrats continue to reject every opportunity to end the shutdown or mitigate its pain. They now blocked a clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution 12 times. 12 times, Mr. President. A clean resolution sitting right there to open up the government, get everybody paid, get federal employees back to work. That thing sitting at the desk that funds the government doesn't have a single new Republican policy in it. It doesn't have a single partisan policy writer. It simply extends current government funding. But Democrats have said no to that now 12 times. We offered them a chance to continue the bipartisan appropriations process, starting with the defense appropriations bill, a bill that passed out of the committee by a big bipartisan vote of 26-3. But Democrats said no to that too. They didn't want to lose leverage in the shutdown. Then last week, we offered up a bill to pay any federal employee who was working during the shutdown, including everybody here. And once again, Democrats said no. Mr. President, I don't know what Democrats are holding out for. Do Democrats think that we're suddenly going to vote for their partisan CR, which, by the way, would spend an additional $1.5 trillion to keep the government open until the end of this week? That's their alternative. $1.5 trillion to keep the government open until Friday. That's their alternative. It wouldn't pass here. It can't pass in the House, and it wouldn't be signed into law by the president. Our bill, on the other hand, as I said, has passed the House a month ago, has been sitting here for an entire month, and will be signed by the president immediately to reopen the government. I have to say, Mr. President, this wasn't my plan for the month of October. A government shutdown may have been what Democrats had in mind to show the far left that they're fighting President Trump and to get some cheers at the No Kings rally. That wasn't my plan. My plan was to get the government funded with as little drama as possible. That's why Republicans put forward a clean, continuing resolution. No partisan policies, nothing new. Who could possibly have a problem with that? It would give us more time to continue progress on full-year appropriations bills, the way we're supposed to fund the government. Now, I would realize that would be out of the ordinary given the past few years under the Democrat majority and Leader Schumer, but I was clear from the day I took office that I want to do things differently around here. My goal was to have an open process, conducted through regular order, something that I think is in the best interest of this institution and of all senators, both sides of the aisle. And I know I was not alone in wanting an open process. And until Democrats derailed everything, we had actually made a lot of progress on restoring regular order this year. We passed 3 bipartisan appropriations bills before the August recess, the first time the Senate had done that since 2018. Now we're trying to go to conference on those 3 bills to reach a final agreement with the House. And the Democrats are blocking that. That includes the agriculture bill that funds farm programs and nutrition assistance, the military construction and VA bill that funds programs that veterans rely on. As I said, we tried to bring up the defense appropriations bill this month in hopes that if Democrats wouldn't agree to fund the entire government, we could at least make some progress on this critical aspect of it. And I told my Democrat colleagues at the time that if we got on that bill, we would work to add other bipartisan bills, the same way we did it just a few months ago. But once again, Democrats said no. No to funding programs that they claim they support. No to an open process. No to bipartisanship. Mr. President, time and again, we've heard the Democrat leader lecture about bipartisanship. So why is his caucus blocking progress on bipartisan appropriations bills? Why are Democrats blocking bills that they helped write in the Appropriations Committee, where these bills are passing with overwhelming bipartisan margins? As I said, 26-3. Why are they impending, or I should say upending, a bipartisan process that benefits all senators on both sides of the aisle? The senior senator from Hawaii said recently, and I quote, "We still have hope for the appropriations process. There's a bipartisan desire to get something done and avoid a full-year continuing resolution," end quote. Well, all I can say in response is that if Democrats still have hope for the appropriations process, they need to start acting like it. We're running out of time. And every day Democrats say no to reopening the government is another day lost. Mr. President, we've given Democrats a lot of opportunities to work in the best interest of the American people. But Democrats seem more interested in getting the upper hand in their partisan games. The number 2 Democrat in the House said last week, and I quote, "I mean, shutdowns are terrible, and of course there will be, families that are going to suffer, but is one of the few leverage times we have," end quote. Of course there will be times we have. That from the second-ranking Democrat in the House of Representatives. I think it describes where we're at, Mr. President. Sure, people are suffering, but Democrats need their leverage. Are they serious? Mr. President, I end as I began, quoting the president of a major labor union and a Democrat ally. This is the quote: "The path forward for Congress is clear. reopen the government immediately under a clean continuing resolution that allows continued debate on larger issues, end quote. Mr. President, I yield the floor and I suggest the absence of the quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
National Audiology Awareness Month. It also happens to be the 3-year anniversary of the bipartisan Over-the-Counter Hearing Aid Act regulations going into effect. You see this on television now, advertisements for Over-the-Counter Hearing Aid Act. Before this legislation was passed, there was a whole bunch of red tape you had to go through to buy very expensive hearing aids. Now they're more affordable. Now, while it took too many years for the Food and Drug Administration to issue these regulations 3 years ago, it followed my bipartisan 2017 law. I'm glad Americans now have access to safe, effective, and affordable hearing aid over the counter. While we've known for years that hearing loss is a major factor in a person getting dementia, it wasn't until recently that we found out that assessing hearing aids can decrease the risk of cognitive decline by nearly half. For many, purchasing hearing aids presents many questions. That's why accessing audiology service can be helpful. To access audiology services, like a diagnostic test under Medicare, a physician's order is required. That requires more time and a great number of hoops to jump through. I want people to know that I support cutting this unnecessary red tape. That's why I've partnered with my colleagues to introduce a legislation called the Medicare Audiology Access Improvement Act. Our bill will let seniors access a full range of hearing health services provided by licensed audiologists without the red tape. During Audiology Awareness Month, Americans should be aware that they can access hearing aids over the counter, and Congress is working hard to improve access to those audiology services. I yield the floor.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
Mr. President, the President of the United States says that the United States is at war. In the past 7 weeks, President Trump has ordered U.S. forces to take military action to destroy 10 boats in international waters. That has resulted in the death of more than 40 possible drug couriers. President Trump has also told Congress he's determined that the United States is at war with what he calls narco-terrorists. He's also said that he's taking steps to escalate military action against Venezuela and Colombia. And of course, is sending U.S. warships, fighter planes, and special forces to their coast. And he's also openly tossing around threats of airstrikes against targets in the sea and on land. You know, the questions before us as the United States Senate are clear and they are urgent. Are the president's actions steering the American people into yet another undeclared war? And would it be legal for the president to expand this war to the sovereign territories of countries in South America, as he is now threatening to do? Mr. President, the clear answer is no. That this president, no president, has the legal authority without congressional authorization to take America into military conflict. There has been no credible legal experts that have defended the president's actions, with one exception, and of course that is the Attorney General, who has provided an opinion to the president. We are told, but we have not seen, that what he's doing is legal. That's without precedent. It's without precedent for the top legal official in this country to give an opinion that it's legal to go to war without congressional authorization. But it's clearly the legal advice the president wanted and won't even share with the members of the United States Senate. The president, of course, seems to be basing the legality of these actions on the declaration that drug traffickers are terrorists. We all join in hating what the drug traffickers do, but it's also based on that legal opinion, the Office of Legal Counsel at the Justice Department, that we're told gives legal cover for the president to do what is clearly beyond the authority of a chief executive. We know nothing about that opinion, and all in this body who have called for it to be released are doing the right thing. We know that under the U.S. Constitution, the president does not have authority to start a war without congressional authorization. It is in Article 1 responsibility of the Congress of the United States, and there's a reason for that that's so very important. If we are going to ask, with the authority of Congress and the executive, men and women to go to war on behalf of defending our country, that profoundly important decision that is being made by Congress, but is putting in harm's way the men and women who serve in the military, there should be a debate and there should be a vote, there should be responsibility, and there should be accountability. And simply the determination by the president that he's attacking a group of what he calls terrorists, narco-terrorists, does not by itself make it legal under the Constitution. You know, some people may say, what's the big deal? These are bad folks. Drugs are terrible. We all agree with that. But it's not up to the president to determine whether we go to war. It's up to Congress. Should we be going to war with Venezuela? You know, all of us are on board, Republicans and Democrats, with the fight against narcotics, illegal drugs, fentanyl in particular, which mostly enter the U.S. through Mexico and on the Pacific Ocean, are wreaking havoc on our communities. It's happened in Vermont, as well as West Virginia, Idaho, Florida, Montana, every other state. Our sons and daughters, mothers and fathers are struggling with addiction and dying from overdose. So yes, this is a very serious problem, and we should be doing far more to deal with it, treating addiction in our own country, bolster our local police forces, our mental health resources, and to work with source countries to stop the production and transshipment of these dangerous drugs. This has not been a partisan issue. And in fact, it is an issue where when I served in the House, there was Republican and Democratic collective action to provide treatment that is providing real world help in real time to folks in your state and in mine. But laws matter, and the Constitution matters. If the president does want to start a war, if he wants to put America's troops in harm's way, he needs to seek authorization from Congress. And as my colleagues and I know too well, the United States has a very unfortunate history of wars, forever wars, started by presidents who misrepresented the facts. From the USS Maine incident used to justify the war against Spain, to the Gulf of Tonkin resolution incident to justify the Vietnam War, 60,000 young Americans killed, to President Bush's stretching of the facts about Iraq's alleged weapons of mass destruction to launch a disastrous forever war. In each of these cases, majorities of our predecessors on this very Senate floor abdicated their responsibility to question the president's intentions and justifications for war. And that is why I hope that each of my colleagues, each of us here, will join me in questioning the president's legal basis to carry out these killings and to potentially launch attacks against one or more South American countries. We should demand that Congress assert its constitutional obligation to determine where and why the United States goes to war. You know, as I mentioned, we all hate the scourge of drugs. But why are we spending billions of dollars in this effort in Venezuela, while at the same time taking funding away for treatment programs here at home that actually have been proven effective to help the most vulnerable Americans that are actually struggling with addiction to fentanyl and other drugs? The Department of Justice has also diverted thousands of Drug Enforcement Administration funds and other law enforcement personnel from their critical missions to carry out the president's immigration agenda. Yet the department has inexplicably shut down the Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force, which has been effective in dismantling thousands of criminal organizations. And unilaterally, the administration has terminated hundreds of grants that do provide critical funding to state and local law enforcement, folks on the ground in the community, helping folks who are struggling with addiction and helping law enforcement get to the sellers of those terrible drugs. In fact, the administration's fiscal year 2026 budget would slash the high-intensity drug trafficking areas program by more than a third, from 298 million to 196 million. And under the direction of Attorney General Bondi, federal drug prosecutions, I have no idea how this happened, but federal drug prosecutions have dropped to the lowest level in decades. A fact I find shocking. So when the president claims his new war is about protecting America from drugs, it's a fair question. Why are we doing so little? Why are we taking money away from treatment? Why are we taking money away from high-intensity drug enforcement? Why are we not prosecuting more, instead prosecuting so much less? Mr. President, it's up to the Senate to do its job. We have seen from history that our failure to assert our constitutional responsibility to decide whether to send our military to war has resulted in grievous suffering for the American people and a weakening of our national security. Mr. President, in asserting our responsibility, at the bare minimum, this United States Senate should demand to see Attorney General Bondi's legal analysis that the president has used to justify his use of the U.S. military to engage in these attacks. Mr. President, I yield back.
The United States of America, radical Islam, and Sharia law. The Democrats and the mainstream media, they've been coming after me ever since I started talking about this subject. But after spending 40 years coaching, I don't really care what people think about me. I love this country, and I want to save this country for our kids and our grandkids. You know, I was back in Alabama this weekend, and I heard from countless Alabamians who told me they are 100% behind what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, I work for the great people of Alabama and the great people of this country, not the pearl-clutching media that is out there hammering me every day. Speaking of Alabama, I'm proud that the Yellowhammer State banned Sharia law a long time ago. For too long, people have been afraid to call out radical Islam for what it is. Because if you dare to speak out, the left will come after you, your family, your reputation, and your job. They'll try to ruin your life just because they disagree with you. That's how they play the game. One of the radical left's go-to tactics is to accuse anyone who disagrees with them as being a racist, a bigot, or intolerant. They've tried that with me, calling me an Islamophobe for calling out the evils of Islam. But there's only one problem with that strategy. One, radical Islam isn't a race, it's an ideology. It's a choice. And I would argue it is a cult. So no, I'm not an Islamophobe. If you want to peacefully practice your religion, that's fine with me. That's what our Constitution gives you the right to do. Our Constitution gives you that right, and that's why we have millions of Christians, Jews, Mormons, Hindus, Buddhists, and peaceful Muslims who worship freely in this great country of ours called the United States of America. But if you come here, you are expected to assimilate to our country and our values. I recently saw a stat that absolutely shocked me. We have 42 million people in this country that are on food stamps. 42 million. You would think these people are just Americans who have fallen on hard times, which is who the program is for. But a disproportionate amount of these 42 million people are immigrants. 45% of Afghanistani immigrants are on food stamps. 42 of the Somalian immigrants are on food stamps. And 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps. 59%. So clearly, these people are not coming here and assimilating in our America way of life by working hard and taking care of your family. What an idea. They are coming here to mooch off the American taxpayer. It's wrong, and we need to call it out. But beyond the taxpayer concerns, this religion is also fundamentally incompatible with our Western values. So wake up, America. The Quran instructs Islamists to fight Jews and Christians, along with anyone else who doesn't believe in Allah. Simply put, radical Islam teaches that it is righteous to kill Christians. It's righteous. There's no peaceful coexistence with this type of people. None. Just look at the Middle East and North Africa, where Christians and Jews are being slaughtered by the thousand. Where's our media? Where are they at? More than 7,000 Christians have been slaughtered by radical Muslims in Nigeria so far this year. 7,000. That's 35 people that have been killed every day this year. Where's the mainstream media? How come they're not talking about that? Radical Islam demands complete obedience, complete, 100%, and will kill you if you dare to speak out against their beliefs and ideologies. This isn't anything new. Muslims have been fighting to wipe out Christians and Jews for centuries. But now the problem isn't just confined to faraway Middle East. It's happening right here in our backyard in 50 states. We're already seeing cities in Michigan, Minnesota being taken over by Sharia law. In Dearborn, Michigan, a Christian pastor recently protested. A street was named after a radical Islamist terrorist. Pastor just complained about it. In response, the Muslim mayor of Dearborn told the pastor that he is no longer welcome in the town and will celebrate the day that he leaves. Think about that. A Christian pastor is being silenced here in America for objecting to a taxpayer-funded road being named after a terrorist. We're losing it. Or take what has been happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which has been and seen a massive influx of Somalians moving into their neighborhood. I recently saw a story that absolutely shocked me. More than 75 Somalians have been arrested in a massive scheme where they stole $300 million from a American taxpayer-funded child nutrition program. $300 million. So these Somalian criminals came to Minneapolis. They took advantage of our free schools and our free health care, and then they stole $300 million from American taxpayers right under our noses. Where is the media? Where's the outrage? And where did this money go? Where do you think it went? You guessed it. It went back to Somalia. It's disgusting, and these people should be deported, if not jail for life. In case you're still unclear about the dangers we're facing, here are a few reasons why Sharia law does not work in a Western society like the United States. In America, we value free speech. The U.S. Constitution gives us that right. The First Amendment is what makes this country, America, great. You're allowed to express your opinions publicly without fear of the government arresting you or killing you. But under Sharia law, any criticism that goes against what Muhammad or the Quran says can be punishable by death. Further, under the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment, equal rights for people of all faiths are protected. Western culture treats everyone equal, regardless of their religious beliefs. Under Sharia law, if you are not a Muslim, you are treated as the enemy. Radical Islam says you can discriminate against and even be violent towards non-Muslims. We see that happening now in Europe, where non-Muslims are being violently attacked every day all over Europe. It's because Sharia law not only accepts but encourages this type of disgusting behavior. Another major difference between Islam and our Western culture is the way we treat women. In the U.S., marriage happens when a man and woman mutually decide that they want to get married and be with each other. But under Sharia law, older men are allowed to marry 6-year-old girls, which is unbelievable. 6 years old. That's not marriage. In America, we call that pedophilia. But that's just scraping the surface. In Sharia law, women are sold, raped, trafficked, no problem to them. That's their way of life. Women are not allowed to get an education or have a job. They aren't even allowed to leave home without a man escorting them. And women are forced to wear burqas, which cover basically everything but their eyes. Meanwhile, men are allowed to have multiple wives, marry children, and do not have to cover their heads. It makes your blood boil. Not to mention the horrible way that minorities are treated in countries that follow Sharia law. There's no tolerance in these countries. If you live in a country that practices Sharia law and are not Muslim, you're lucky if you aren't thrown in jail or killed. That's because Islam and Sharia law teach that you must hate non-Muslims and should wage jihad, which literally means holy war against people who do not believe. One thing I find particularly ironic is how the left turns a blind eye to the horrible ways LGBT people are treated in countries that follow Sharia law. In countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen, gay people are often given the death penalty. Does that sound like a peaceful, tolerant religion to you? Not me. Unfortunately, this poisonous religion, which I think is closer to a cult, is rapidly growing in this country. Wake up, America. Look no farther than New York, where a radical Islamist, Zohan Mandami, is the front runner to become the next mayor. Mandami has tried everything he can do to hide his radical Islamic beliefs ever since he started campaigning. But he was recently seen in a photo with the co-conspirator of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Think about that. And they're getting ready to elect him mayor. The leading candidate for mayor of New York City is cozying up with an openly jihadist terrorist sympathizer. Where are we going? In New York, if New Yorkers are stupid enough to elect a radical Islamist as their mayor, then they deserve what they get next, and it is coming. I truly believe we're at the crossroads of this country. The time for political correctness is over. That's why I've introduced 2 bills in the Senate to end Sharia law in this country. End it. The first one is No Sharia Act, which makes it illegal to practice Sharia law when it conflicts with our Constitution. As I've repeatedly said, the radical Islam cult is the opposite of everything. I mean, everything that we stand for in America. The second bill I introduced, the Preserving a Sharia Law or Sharia Free America Act, prevents all foreign nationals who advocate for Sharia law from entering this country. No more. If you want to practice that, stay where you're at or go to one of the other 50 countries that practices this. The Trump administration banned people from nearly 50 Muslim countries during the first administration. And thanks to Joe Biden's 4 years of open borders, we now have thousands of terrorists and their sympathizers who entered our country unchecked. How stupid was that? We have to shut off the spigot before it's too late. This is a major national security threat. Radical Islamists have proven over and over again that they are willing to do whatever it takes to kill just one American citizen. And it didn't just happen overseas. It has been allowed to fester and is alive and well in our very own country, just waiting for the right opportunity to attack. So now is the time to act, because if we don't, we're going to lose this country as we know it. Open your eyes, America. The values of this country was built on cannot coexist with radical Islam. It doesn't work. It's one, our Constitution, or the other. You can't mix them. This isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue. Just look at Europe. We are headed down the same dark path as what Europe's going through now if we don't wake up. We need to permanently shut down Sharia law in this country before it's too late.
I'm Mike Lamonia. In Richmond, I'll work to lower costs for your family, eliminating the car tax, fully repealing the grocery tax, helping you keep more of your hard-earned money. You deserve results, and I'm committed to delivering.
Mr. President.
Senator from Nevada.
Thank you. Mr. President, Nevadans work hard for their money, really hard, especially right now when they're being squeezed by rising costs as a result of Trump's chaos and his reckless economic policies. Nevadans pay taxes with the expectation that the federal government is going to work for them and provide critical services when they need it. Services that are shamefully being disrupted by the Republican government shutdown. Instead, their taxpayer dollars are being wasted on gold-plated dinners at the White House. Count them, two private jets for Kristi Noem, and unbelievably, a potentially multi-million-dollar illegal payment to Donald Trump. So you heard that right. In the middle of a government shutdown that he caused because he refuses to take action to prevent a spike in your health care costs, Donald Trump is seeking $230 million in payment from the Department of Justice for who? Well, for himself. He's going to use your money to pad his own pockets instead of working with Democrats to take action to make sure that you and your family can go to the doctor without breaking the bank. Trump has even acknowledged that, quote, it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself, end quote. And I'm going to go one step further, Mr. President. It's not just strange. It's outrageous. $230 million? All while families are worrying about paying their bills, putting food on the table, and wondering if they'll be able to afford their health insurance for next year.
I think there might have been a little bit of a technical difficulties there. What I was saying is, this lady is twisting the truth. She's taking things out of context. She is painting it as if Donald Trump, in the middle of a shutdown, is siphoning money from the U.S. government, and essentially taking money from the Department of Justice and putting it in his own pocket while other people suffer. That is so far from the truth. The truth is, while Donald Trump was not president again, he was being attacked by the Joe Biden administration legally. They were sending the FBI to raid his home. They were sending all sorts of lawsuits against him, his family, people who worked for him. And what he ended up doing is he sued them for all the things that he thought was unjustly done to him. Because our justice system and our court system are very slow, it took a while for the case to be heard. Now, while the case is being heard and decided upon, Trump is now back in office. And he was entitled to, financial restitution to be made whole due to the fact that it was found that he was unjustly targeted and essentially picked on by his opposing party. And now the winnings from those cases is what he would essentially get from the Department of Justice, because he sued the government. Now he's heading the government. At the time that he sued the government, Joe Biden was heading the government. So he sued him at that time. Now, whatever he wins, he's now entitled to cover the expenses of legal fees and things that he had to pay out during that time. But this lady is craftfully painting it as if he is siphoning money from the American people while everybody else suffers. This is evidence that the Democratic Party does not speak the truth. And this lady is so bold to lie like that. It's just really, really unfair. And it speaks to the character of these people. These are the same people that would tell you he colluded with Russia to win the first election. These are the same people that would tell you the COVID-19 is going to solve the COVID problem vaccine and mandate that you take it. These are the same people that's going to tell you that the insurrection was, a run on the government, when in actuality, they actually coordinated it and had people leading people, herding people into that room just so they can make the case that Trump led an insurrection. Like, these people do not have the truth inside of them. And it's unfortunate to hear them sit and to speak these lies when the American people can see it for what it is. Now, I just thought it was important for me to clarify the proper context as this lady speaks and misrepresents the truth. A lot of people who hasn't been following along wouldn't know the proper context. The money that she's referring to is money he won, and the words that she's taking and putting on that picture there is an interview that was done in the Oval Office, where a press journalist asked him, "What are you going to do with the earnings that you gotten from your lawsuits?" And so he said he doesn't know what he's going to do with it. He said he may end up giving it to charity, but he doesn't know, because in this case, he sued them and now he heads up, the government. But at the time that he sued them, he was not in that position. The government was picking on him. He sued them, won the case. Now they owe him money. And because they owe him money, now he's essentially taking money from his own people. This lady is now spinning it as if he is siphoning the money from the American people and putting it in his pocket. Look, the guy's a billionaire over and over again. He doesn't even take a salary. He donates a salary, right? Like, money is not a problem for him. He's building, the ballroom out of his own pocket. Like, there's not even using, tax dollars to build it. Like, he's gotten donations from private investors and from his own personal pocket, and he's building that. But these people will lead you to believe he's taking the taxes of the American people to build it, and he's just this bad person. And it's unfortunate, man. It's hard for people to rally around the Democratic Party when they just are blatant liars and people just can't see the truth in them. I'm not a fan of that. And it's almost like they insult your intelligence that you can't do a little bit of research to know that what they're saying is outright wrong. So unfortunately, I can't even continue listening to the rest of this press conference. It's a little too much for me. Too much twisted truth, and I don't even want to project that. But you hear what these people are saying, their talking points. And I thank you guys for joining. There's a link in this video, so if you want to continue watching what was said, you can go ahead and do that. I am gonna, hop off. And I encourage you guys to like and subscribe and to stay connected to let your voice be heard if you're not already a subscribed member of the Intercourse Show. With that said, have a blessed day and enjoy your weekend.